Good morning, everybody. Happy FAFO Friday. Hope the whole Daily Rip crew is doing well. Hope the chat's having a good morning. This market's pumping right now. Looking really good so far. Going right back to these hourly highs at the moment on NQES. Everything looking really strong right now. So I think we're going to have a fun Friday. I'm excited. We had some earnings kick off this week with the banks. And I think that's really starting to set the tone for the whole earnings season. So, Michael, how are we feeling this morning? We got a pumping market right now.
We absolutely do. I was just here on, let me grab this. I was just here on the heat map. This is how I start my day every day. Right, boom, right there. So this is just all the sectors that I'm breaking down. You can see a lot of green, not a lot of red. What we do see in red is natural gas, and that's just either up or down 10% every single day. So I kind of ignore that. But it'll be interesting to see when we finally tick live. But yeah, it looks like that, whatever happened last night, got Bitcoin ripping, got everything else popping with it. I love that you don't need to wait for the markets to open anymore. If you want to know how the markets are going to open, you just bring up your Bitcoin charts. But even on the weekend, I find myself just looking and saying, "Oh, it's going to be a good Monday because Bitcoin's up," or, "Oh, it's going to be a bad Monday because Bitcoin's down." But still chopping inside this box. I wonder if we're ever going to break through.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's been consolidation period on all the crypto names for the most part. Except I feel like XRP is definitely. I don't know if you've been keeping an eye on that, but that thing has definitely had some strength. I feel like relative to everything else. So
XRP, yeah, it's you got to go out a while, but we are butting up against. You got to get it from the right place too. This is the most annoying thing about
it's just funny to see
crypto.
that so strong while Bitcoin is just stuck in that consolidation. But I have no doubt
Yeah,
that Bitcoin will
it's
get going.
well, or we could be doing an alt season, right? So one chart I like to look at a lot is you do Ethereum price in Bitcoin, and let's go to a daily chart. So, nah, see, it's still not doing well. Most of the time,
Yeah.
right, Ethereum underperforms Bitcoin. If this line goes down, Ethereum's underperforming Bitcoin. If this line goes up, Ethereum's outperforming Bitcoin. And it looked like for a second we may have some Ethereum outperforming Bitcoin, but that's not working. The other one to do is Solana in Bitcoin, and that's bouncing a little bit just to see the outperformance. The reason I look at these is because as you know, a lot of the altcoins are either built on Solana or Ethereum. So if these things are starting to outperform Bitcoin, then it's like maybe altcoin season, which I've really been waiting for just to see if some of these other guys can get going. Like Ripple's doing fantastic, but I want to see like Litecoin break out of here. I own some of this guy. A couple of these names. Just it's one of those that I don't know if the beta is going to be there in Bitcoin anymore because of all the institutional involvement.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people hate me when I say it, but I don't know if we're getting triples and quadruples just right off the bat with Bitcoin anymore. Because the more institutions you have, the more liquidity you have, generally things start to slow down. So I'm trying to look for the kind of last bastions of craziness in crypto without going into like the crazy meme coins that I'm just not comfortable putting any money in personally. I'm just a boomer that way.
Yeah, it's something to think about if you're heavily invested in Bitcoin right now. Let's bring up the daily rip and kind of recap from what happened yesterday.
Sure.
Get that
Do I
going.
have to? Sure. Gotcha.
Perfect. Get that going. So here's that heat map. I know yesterday
Mm-hmm.
we were looking at the heat map. There was a little more green in our big tech names. So back red there. We saw the market kind of turn around yesterday. I only played downside yesterday on the intraday. So definitely saw some heaviness in the market. Tesla down 3.36%. Apple took a lot of heat as well. We saw Apple just, I mean, basically straight down for the first, I don't know, hour and a half of the morning yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So looking rough there. Real estate, utilities looking good though. Healthcare, industrials, a lot of green there. So noticing that. Anything really standing out to you, Michael?
Well, that's what this chart just screams rotation to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got the big Mag 7, the giant boxes there. I bet these boxes are just done by market cap. So the large guys are just the large market cap ones. They're all red. But look at all the little tiny, right? All the little tiny guys, very green. Not just a little bit green, but very green. And I think you see that a lot if you look at cap weight versus equal weight. We saw, yes, the SPY was down, but the equal weight index was up. So it's just showing that people are taking their money from the things that have been working the last few years, and they've been pumping their money into other stuff. So we're just rotating and going around, which again, it's what you want to see, right? It's kind of sucks if the only thing you trade is big cap tech, but the beauty of what we do here and you guys checking us out and StockTwits and all of that is that there's tons of stuff to go out there and trade, right? So we might be in one of those environments where, hey, maybe I don't have to just own Nvidia and Tesla and Apple. I can start to own some gas stocks and things
Maybe
like
there's
that.
some opportunity elsewhere.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind of boring
it's
just
been
to
an
say what's
Nvidia year, man.
Nvidia.
Yeah,
I know.
it's been all about Nvidia. Shout out to everybody on the StockTwits platform right now. We got 200 viewers on there, so shout out to everybody taking the time to go on the platform and check it out on there. We appreciate you. TSM surges while Apple slumps. We talked about Apple kind of taking a dive yesterday. The world's most valuable company and the world's largest chip manufacturer were among the top trending stocks in the market today. Apple stock slumped to a 2-month low after a report from market research firm Canalys showed that Apple ceded its top spot in the Chinese smartphone market to domestic players in 2024. It shipped just 42.9 million iPhones, down 17% year over year. I love how they say just 42.9 million iPhones,
Yeah.
like it's not a lot. I mean, it's an absurd amount of iPhones, but at the same time, it's funny you think about it. It's like, well, we think like everybody just has one phone, but a lot of people nowadays have two phones, right? And it's like, and pretty much everybody you talk to has a phone, and so
Yeah.
it's a lot bigger than we think, you know. But this comes in the face of modest Chinese smartphone market growth of 5% year over year. Apple shares are working on their third straight down week. Those stock twits sentiment remains in bullish territory. All I gotta say is Shy kind of laid it out for you guys over the past few weeks when Apple was kind of outperforming everything and really going to the upside while market started to take a dive. And Shy was here to kind of give everybody the warning. So love to see that. Any thoughts on this, Michael?
Technically speaking, we got it broke technically yesterday, right? We had 336, 337 on the SPY. I'll show it when we're done this, but just it was a massive level going back all the way to July of last year, and we crashed back down through it. So we got to see that come back. I think pretty quickly in order for it to start ripping bullish again. But now that we're back below that support, we could just be entering a consolidation for this, right? It's one of those things. It wasn't, it's not like the phone started exploding or anything. It's not a super bad news. But yeah, there's a chart right there. You can see that clear area at around the 230s or so where it bumped its head on 4 or 5 times before it broke through. And then what you want to see is as it pulls back to that is people defending that area. There was no defense yesterday. It just cracked right through. So technically this is a broken chart right now, and I need to see a lot of recovery before I'd get excited for Apple.
Yeah, I'm with you. You mentioned consolidation, and for me, I mean, when you see a name like Apple, you just look at the daily chart since November of last year, we were basically going straight up, and now we just peaked our head at that 260, and now we're coming straight down. So when you talk about consolidation, I absolutely see that happening here. We just got massive moves to the upside. Now back to the downside. We can't expect markets to just move in one direction forever. So I definitely see some sideways price action potentially coming for
Well,
Apple.
when we're done this, I've got some evidence for that. A really cool chart that a buddy of mine shared on Twitter and I think StockTwits recently. So yeah, remind me when we're done that. I got a really really compelling case for us being choppy this year. Oh, I can't hear you, Jordan. I don't know if do we lose sound again? Run it. All right, so we're just
You got
gonna
me
have a
now?
little. Yeah, you're back.
Oh, there we go. I don't, dude,
I
I
miss
didn't
you.
click mute, nothing. I don't know what's going on, but all good. Just some other noteworthy pops and drops we had. Down 40% on Atera Biotherapeutics. You see this a lot. I want people to notice when we look at these. It's always the therapeutic names. It's always the biotech names. It's always those outlandish, just crazy names that are.
Oh, we lost you again. Do that restart one more time, and I'll just start. But yeah, just to carry your point, when you're looking at these and you're looking for stuff that's up or down 40%, it's never going to be an airline. It's never going to be a retailer or anything like that. It's going to be these therapeutics. And the reason for that is just simply because they're going to announce something that's going to do very well, or they're going to announce something to do very poorly. It's one of the things that's very important if you're trading these things. You just trade them very, very small and according to kind of everything that's happening. Is that right? One of the notes here is that Rivian's up 9%. That's a massive move for a stock like Rivian. But for a biotech, that's really not that big of a deal, right? Same Southwest Airlines down 2%. That's actually a pretty decent move for an airline, but for a biotech, it's nothing. So it's very important that I know there's a lot of people who will just equally size their portfolio regardless of whether it's a natural gas stock or an energy stock or, a boring stock or an exciting stock or whatever. Just look at the volatility of the name and do some sort of volatility sizing where you're saying, hey, this is a biotech and it's insane. So I'm going to maybe trade it with half the size or invest half the size into it. Then I would do something like a Costco or something like that.
I think we're good. Can you hear me?
You're back.
Oh gosh. Well, let's hope it stays. I have no idea what's going on. I've never had that problem. But yeah, just I fully agree with you.
Yeah.
You were talking about Rivian and just how 9% for Rivian is a massive move. But when we look at
Big move.
biotechs and names like that, it's nothing, right? So
Yeah.
something to keep aware of there if you are trading those names. But moving on, let's see what else we got. Apple. We talked about this chart a little bit.
Hmm.
Coming down. Well, what moving average is that? That looks like the 150 moving average, if I'm correct. Yeah. So at the end of the day, we talked about it. Straight up, straight down now. I would expect consolidation, especially coming into these higher time frame moving averages. But at the end of the day, until I really see this market structure start to shift again on these, especially if you were to zoom in a bit on maybe a 4 hour time frame, right? Really want to see that market structure shift from lower highs, lower lows. I talk about this all the time. It's very simple. You see this market just continuously making lows. When I want to see this start to base, maybe go sideways a little bit, see that consolidation we've been talking about, and then again just get a market shift, right? Start to make higher highs and higher lows, and then I can think, okay, maybe we can start to see back towards these 248 and 260 levels, right back to those highs, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I'd be looking for here on Apple.
Yeah, it's more evidence of rotation, right? Apple down a bunch. We have gas names hitting new highs. We have energy names doing fantastic. Natural gas, not today, but most days, it's up massive off its lows. So yeah, if you're someone who's just really focused on big cap tech and you're like, that's the only thing I want to trade, it's suffering. If you're someone who's out there and you're like, hey, I'll trade anything that as long as it gives me a setup, something I want to look at, again, that's going to be the place to go. You're going to have to be, if we're in a rotational market, it's one of those markets where you got to be fast on your feet. You got to cut something when it's no longer working. You got to move over to something else, right? From tech to energy, from energy to industrials to biotechs, whatever it is. Just stick and move kind of market.
Yeah, absolutely. Stera Labs. This is one of those names that was on the. I think this was on the noteworthy pops and drops. At the risk of dropping below 120 bucks. So we just have again. You have this channel to the upside, right, where we've been making those higher highs, higher lows, and then at the top you start to see this market go a little sideways, right? And
Hmm.
now we're starting to get a little bit of a break of structure. You're starting to break that bottom trend line they have drawn here. So I would be a little cautious here. But even if we do get a breakdown, you see, if you just look left, you see that 95.21, that 88.59, those previous, I think these are all-time highs, I'm pretty sure. If not, just those previous highs sitting there, right? I would look for that to be kind of a spot to hold and potentially get bought up. But at the end of the day, you might see some short-term downside if you do get continued selling through these lows and continue to break this trend line here. But what are your thoughts on this, Michael?
Yeah, take a look at the indicator on the top is an RSI, and that's a momentum indicator, right? A lot of people use this wrong. They say, hey, if it gets too high, I'm going to sit short it. If it gets too low, I'm going to buy it. It doesn't work like that, right? You've been tested. But what it's doing is showing the momentum. And you notice that for the longest time, that top indicator, that RSI, that middle line is 50. But it's always staying in the upper bound for that whole trend up. That means that it's never able to get to the point where sellers ever took control of this name, just buying, buying, buying. For the first time now, we're dipping under that 50 mark. So that could be a first sign of, okay, right, sellers have been able to overwhelm buyers for the first time since August in this name. So that's a pretty big deal. So that's how I use that indicator, just saying, yeah, there's some selling here that wasn't here before.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what other charts we got. Applied Materials breaks trend line with strong rally. You saw this on the heat map. I think it was up like 3.4% or something like that yesterday.
Hmm.
So doing well, getting some momentum for sure. Trying to break out of that top trend line you have drawn there. Um, I don't know. Not a name I trade pretty consistently, to be honest. So I don't know, how like options contracts are on it at all or anything like that. But I would say, this is starting to get some momentum for sure and break highs. That market structure shift that I talk about, you're starting to get that and starting to make higher lows. I would just like to see continued momentum because you're kind of just coming into potential targets that could get shorted pretty quick. I think, right? That 200 cycle level is going to be a huge spot, just
Yeah.
being that psychological level right there, right? So,
Hmm.
curious what you think about this one.
Yeah, good overall chart, but you're right. In the short term, looks a little extended. Maybe needs to cool off a little bit. But again, just showing that rotation, right?
Yeah.
These names are going up, and this is the same time frame that Apple is crashing. So, whoever's looking at this stuff, again, I'm going to applaud you because I really think this year is going to be the year to reward people who are going in kind of different places. Now, Applied Materials is still tech; it's just not that mega cap tech that's been doing so well. So, yeah, I think this is a great chart and good to look under the hood to find names that are popping when the S&P 500 was down. Because it's important to note, right? The SPY was down yesterday. This one put in a nice green day.
Yeah, it seems like the market's kind of telling us it's going to be more of a stock pickers market this year rather than hey, whatever name you want, just kind of buy it and you're gonna do good well.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and you see it. I mean, I don't know about you, Michael, but just on Twitter, I've seen like a lot of, I guess, like just newer traders struggling in this environment when where
Hmm.
like a lot of us day traders and stuff, we're loving it because we're getting that volatility, right? But it's also not an environment where you can just buy the dip, right? You can't just wake up and buy the dip every morning, and I think that's kind of throwing people off at the beginning of this year. So something to think about if you're in the audience and you know made a ton of money 2024. Don't give it away just doing the same thing into 2025 because it's a whole new year. We got a whole new president, right? We got new administration. It's gonna be different slightly. So I'm not a big pessimist. I'm not a big bear on the market at all. I do think we're gonna end green. I think it's gonna be a good year, but I do think it's also gonna be volatile, which could mean some
Yeah, it
whipsaw
reminds me
price
of
action.
2020, right? 2020
Yeah,
is when we had
exactly.
just a giant flush of traders, and you could do no wrong in 2020. You bought anything from pictures of monkeys to, individual stocks to bonds to anything, and you did fantastically. And the problem with it is, as people kind of get sucked into those markets, that's usually when they start to become a little bit more difficult to kind of extract that money from the people. So you're 100% right. It's one of those, right? It's time to start learning some stuff, right? If you just got lucky and you started in the market last year and you made a bunch of money buying fart coin, that's great. I'm happy for you. Now take a breath, right? Start to study some charts, start to study some historical markets like 2022, 2023, that kind of thing. And then yeah, take those gains, take a little bit of a break, and take some time to learn, and then come back and hit it strong.
Yep, 100%. Moving on, Spotify's wild ride from negative 82% to 600%. That's ridiculous. I haven't looked at that move on the charts. Not a name I look at pretty consistently. I think I've traded it a few times. But just a massive move there since 2023.
Hmm.
I mean, that's 2 years, man. That's an awesome return in 2 years if you've been holding Spotify. So congrats to you if you're one of those people. But curious to see where it goes from here. We got a new year and I not a name that not a name that screams to me like I want to be long term invested in personally. But I don't know. What's your take, Michael, on Spotify?
See, I'm an Apple Music guy, right? So I
Okay. I
all of a
use
sudden
Spotify every
don't
day
see the
though. Maybe I
value,
should
right?
be invested. I don't know.
Well, right there you go. It's one of those. I don't know. It's just it's an amazing move. It just shows again what we talked about with 2023, 2024, that this tech was on fire and people kind of had the money to throw around. The question is that thing gonna is it gonna continue? Now, I don't want to take the bet that something that just ripped 600%. I don't want to take the bet that it's gonna crash back down. I don't really want to buy the continuation of that. That's again, this chart kind of supports what we've been talking about a lot this morning, where the market needs to chill a bit. We need some consolidation to deal with these overbought conditions, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, so not something I'm saying, hey, short it, it's going to go back down to 200, but not something I'd plow a whole bunch of money in here for a long term investment anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's see what else we got. Or ooh, UNG. Oh yeah, Natty Gas. So we were talking about Natty Gas a little bit. Doing really well, trying to break out of this trend line. I know. This morning, I think it's getting slapped. I brought it up earlier and it didn't look too good, but closed really strong yesterday. I would look for, when you open up and after a really strong day, if you're down like we are this morning, I would look personally. I would like to see bulls step in right away to kind of
Hmm.
recover whatever move happened over the night, because I think we're below the previous day low at the moment. And it was a beautiful day yesterday on Natty Gas, so it's a little concerning there. I don't know. What's your thoughts here? We're right at the top of this trend line, kind of in resistance here. Getting a little sketchy.
Well, full disclosure, I own a lot. I think last time we were on, I was talking about it, right?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
irresponsibly long from around 16.50, $17 on Natty Gas. I like it, but I like we talked about before, it's with biotechs. I treat this like a biotech. A gap up or down, we're seeing it down 6%. But then you look at the chart and it's barely under yesterday's low. So this thing is just insanely volatile. So they call it the Widowmaker for a reason. You got to trade it small. You got to understand that there's big gaps on it. But this is one of those just kind of so oversold. Like this chart doesn't go out very far, but this was in 2022, $150 a share, and now we're down to $15. So it's one of those, if you get any kind of sustained bounce into the 20s or 30s, it's a great trade. But yeah, you have to trade it accordingly, where this thing is just, it could gap down 20%, and that's just normal price action for natural gas. So it looks good, but be careful.
Yeah, wild stuff there. I've only lost money. I think I mentioned that already. But I haven't
Hey,
traded
it's
it
the
much, but the times I did, I only lost money personally. So
it's the
shout out
Widowmaker,
to
right?
Michael, doing good on there. Um,
So far.
yeah, let's didn't you have some charts you wanted to share, Michael?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to do a little. I found this chart on window right here. This chart here from, so just shout out anytime I grab something. This is Todd Sowen from Strategis, who put out this chart here. And this is basically the breakdown of the first 3 years of a bull market and generally what they look like, right? So this section here is year one, and the really smooth line is what's going on with a normal market. And then this is what we did in the first year of the bull market, which was 2022 to 2023, right? So we matched it pretty closely. But year one, it's usually pretty good. Year two, this is what a normal year in year two of a bull market is. We did much better than that, but you can see we still kind of tracked. This is what year three of a bull market looks like. So on average, from 1950 until date until now, year three of a bull market is generally speaking pretty choppy. So just more evidence that we could be in for that this year. And this kind of choppy action is usually because you're getting rotation under the hood, right? The S&P 500, you're getting energy increasing, where you're getting technology decreasing, you're getting all these things. So if we're going to track the average, then it's just going to kind of show us that, hey, it's going to be a choppy year, which again means buy the dip, sell the rip, stick and move, go to the sectors that are doing well, forget about the sectors that may have been doing fantastic in the past but not really been helping you too much. And again, yeah, this sideways action is good for those of us who can again bounce around from different sectors, and then pretty bad for people who aren't. So yeah, just quick breakdown here of what I was looking at. Where is the 200 day in the in natural gas? Just because I know people have this question about why I bought it now, but this is just the 200-day moving average. It's very simple. A lot of hedge funds, institutions use 200-day moving average. And not that you can just buy stuff that breaks a 200-day moving average or anything, but look how well UNG respected this to the upside for just ages. So when we broke it and we came down to test it on the other side, that's where I started to buy. That's why I kind of bought in this area. The idea being, as long as we can stay above the 200, I want to own some until we kind of get back to this 30 area. So that's what I was looking at on UNG. Now, what's happening here on the SPY? This is just the SPY intraday chart, and yeah, we're still ripping. 2 minutes into the close, we're almost still at pre-market highs. Not looking for much give back there at all.
You hear me?
Yeah, you're
Oh,
back.
now we're good. It keeps cutting
Good.
off. That's hilarious. I was just
That's
saying,
okay.
no, I love the simplicity of your trade here on Natty Gas, just because like
Hmm.
you talk about everybody, you hear everybody losing money on Natty Gas. Everybody talks about it all the time, and then you just come in with a moving average, right? And you're just like very simple. Like this thing has been rejecting this over ages of time, every time, and now
Hmm.
we're seeing.
Oh, you're gone again. So I'll just finish your thought there. But yeah, and I think that should be right with all trading. It should be the way all trading works, where it's just it's simple, right? I'm not because the reason I keep my trading simple as someone again who's a bit of a quant, right? So I backtest systems going back to like 1980, but those systems usually have like two or three indicators in them, if that. And the idea behind it is that the more complicated you make a system, usually the quicker it breaks down. And the fact that nobody knows anything, so nobody's going to have a 90, 100% win rate. And so once you're kind of black pilled, I guess, on that, saying there'll never be a time where I'm 100% correct or even 90% correct. So I'm okay with being 50 to 60% correct. Just when I make money, I want to make way more than when I lose money. Once you kind of get black pilled in that way, then it becomes a lot easier to really simplify your trading. There's no sense for me to put 1,000 indicators on the screen because it's going to bump that win rate. There's a 50-50 chance I'm right on UNG. But if I'm wrong, I'm in around 17, I'm going to be out around 15, so I'm going to lose $2. If I'm right, I'm hoping to get into the 20s and the 30s, so maybe $10 to risk $2 to make 10. 5 to 1 risk reward if I've got a 50-50 chance of being right. I just got to keep my size small enough that if I'm wrong a bunch in a row, I'm okay. I'm not outside my house holding a cup, and eventually, hopefully, the idea is that that ends up making through. So we have 1 minute left into the market, but we got some charts to look after. So
Yeah, we
while
have
Jordan's,
bunch of
oh, you're
names
back.
in the
Good.
chat. I think I'm back
Yeah.
momentarily. I don't know, but we have some names in the chat if you want to bring them up. We got Neo to
Sure.
start.
Yeah, NIO. Well, we got the 200-day moving average on there. There's another one that's kind of respecting it. A very simple thing for me anyway, unless you're doing what they call a revision to the mean trade, which you're just trying to buy something that's dropping in order to get a quick bounce. If you're looking for a sustained trend, again, for me personally, you need to see some time above the 200-day moving average and ideally the 200-day moving average sloping higher. Again, there's no magic behind it. It was above the 200-day moving average for second year and failed. It was second year and failed. But this kind of action, I think, is going to make way more sense. And if you go back in time with Neo, you can see if you had waited for kind of a flat or upward sloping 200-day moving average, yeah, you missed from $1 to $6, right? So you got to be okay missing this if you're a trend trader. But then it goes from 6 to 60. So you got your 10x there. And you avoided a lot of stuff. And then if you got out the second it started to be a struggle with the downward sloping 200-day moving average, you stayed out of the round trip all the way back to 4. So for me personally, that's just how I look at it. I want to see it above. I want to see the moving average sloping higher, not because there's any kind of magic behind it, just because it shows me that it has spent some time, right? You just got to look at how these things are calculated. It means over the last year, we are pushing higher to at least flat. Again, you'll miss a lot of it, but that'll be okay. ACHR, we have one. I'm just going to give the market a minute to open, and then we'll go over what's going on here. But yeah, ACHR is a little bit more interesting to me because again, we use the same idea, right? It's up a lot, right? So you've missed that first $3 to 10. but it's starting to consolidate here, and it's above this upward sloping 200-day moving average. So maybe this is now something you try to keep and get involved. But the idea is that it would have to. These are momentum plays. When you're playing stuff like this, you don't want to buy it when it's really below highs. Again, unless you're doing like a revision to the mean kind of thing. So for me, it's just kind of in the middle of the range, but a little bit interesting here. I think you're back. I hear some clicks.
Are we here? Are we good? Okay,
You
just
are
making
here. You're
sure.
good.
But yeah, no, I agree. ACHR, I mean, interesting chart here. Kind of getting that breakdown. It's still like technically within that range and making higher
Yeah.
lows, but I don't know. I would get a little cautious with those red candles, kind of looking a little more aggressive than the previous ones on the pullbacks. But no, no, I've watched Archer for a good minute now. It's done well over a while, so.
Yeah,
Something
it's
I'm
been a
keeping
strong
an
run.
eye on for sure. I'm not invested personally, but actually, I was at the golf course like years ago, and some guy I was talking with, he's like like getting into stocks and everything, and he was talking to me about this, and he was heavily invested. I wonder how he's doing now. I'm very curious, but yeah, good
Well,
chart there.
yeah, it's one of those you hope that the person that suggested it to you traded it correctly, because
Yeah, right.
that's two things, right? Let's a quick look at the S&P
Depends on when they
500
bought
here.
it.
Yeah, it depends on when they bought it. Depends on when they sold it too, right?
Yeah,
That's the pain. Is sometimes right someone will give you this tip and they'll be buying it 3 and they'll sell it at 4, thinking they're a genius.
yeah.
But that's the way she works. SPY not really doing too much, right? We're below pre-market highs. Just a quick and dirty thing I do just to gauge health, right? There's pre-market highs, there's pre-market lows. Let's just see, and then we can do a VWAP here just to say this is the volume weighted average price. We're about there now. So I look at this in the SPY. I'm like, okay, it's not anything super interesting for me to take a look at one way or another while we're just kind of stuck within this range, right? It's one of those. I know a lot of traders out there, and they just have a very simple rule. If we are within this range, the overnight high and the overnight low, not really doing anything. Right? Let's wait for one of those to resolve one way or another, and then we can start to look to take trades. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of back and fill, because when I look at the daily chart, we're looking a little bit overdone here, right? Just in
Well,
the
we
short
just
term.
went over the previous day highs, which I mean, the high we made yesterday was after and then going down. It was pretty up there, right? And you wouldn't have thought
Hmm.
maybe we'd wake up and see that this morning. So I'm keeping an eye on that, and then weekly highs if we want to keep pushing as well.
Yeah. No, I think yeah, this we've got, from 600 area on the SPY, right, all the way up to 603, all the way down to 597, but that 600 area is going to be a big deal. And if we're going to be anything like that chart that I showed with this choppy action, it just means trying to buy the breakouts and trying to buy the breakdowns isn't going to be fun. As a lot of people found when they tried to short this breakdown on the SPY, and it just ripped in their face, right? So again, I think there's going to be a lot of this, a lot of, maybe you break all-time highs and then you come back down, and then maybe you break a support level and then you come back up, which is frustrating for one kind of style, but for the other style, it's fantastic. It's a good
Yeah,
time.
you just gotta know your environment and trade it accordingly, right? And if you only trade one style, that means at when one environment is around, you're sitting out, and then you're gas pedal on, right? In
Yep.
another environment. So it's really just picking and choosing, the market environment that you're in, and saying, hey, I feel comfortable here, or hey, I don't feel comfortable. I'm gonna sit out and not do anything. It's fine, right? There's plenty of people. God, I mean, Michael, I'm sure you know plenty of traders that. I mean, I know traders that trade a ton throughout the day, and then I also know traders that, I mean, they make a few trades a month, maybe. You know what I mean? So it's just it all depends on your style and what you're wanting out of the market at that time, right? So
Yeah, well, and I think that's just the ticket, right? Is that you need to go, okay, I need to figure out what the quote that I got from my old trading mentor is, what sandbox are you playing in? And is this one that's, everything's good to go? You step on the gas, you buy everything under the sun, you buy every breakout. I remember when I was day trading in 2008, you'd basically get into the office, you'd sit down, you'd look for a bank to hit a new low, you'd punch in your entire account short, and then cover it a couple seconds later, and that was great. But yeah, it's the traders that can't do that kind of adaptation that you talked about. The guys who like, I need to do 100 trades a day. It's like sometimes they're going to do great, sometimes they're going to get killed. Most traders that end up doing really well is they're like, okay, this is the environment to do 100 trades, and then this is the environment to not do 100 trades,
Yeah.
and then try to figure it all out from there, right?
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, what comes with that is just analyzing the data, right? Every time you take a trade, it's data being built. I feel like
Hmm.
not enough people go back and study that, right? I love looking back at that and seeing, oh, where did I go wrong here? Or where did I go right, right? Let's highlight the times that did good as well and
Yep.
try and recreate that and repeat that every day, right? So the
Hmm.
data's there, guys, in your trading. You gotta go look at it, right? It helps a lot.
Yeah, and as a quant, right? That's what I do. I
Yeah,
use
exactly.
historical data, but then yeah, you also use your own data as well. Looking at the heat map off the open, again, these are all the sectors that are up or down the most on the day. You can see mostly everything is up, which, again, is what you want to see in a bull market. We're looking at, I try to find themes when we have mixed days of what's up and what's down. This is one of those things that everything's up, so there's not really much of a theme to see here. Now, the higher beta stuff is up the most, which is, again, what you expect. WGMI is our Bitcoin miners ETF. That's 5.77%, which makes absolute sense with crypto up 3%. Crypto's the percentage of crypto's up is always so weird because it depends on when your exchange closes the candle. But yeah, everything up from the tech side of things. We have semis doing well. Oil is still doing phenomenal. China is up 1%. Things that are down are a lot of defensive asset, right? So DBC is a commodity tracking index. So with that, we have silver down, we have gold down, oil down a little bit. So again, what you expect things like utilities to be down on great up days. So everything we're seeing is looking good, but if we go into the intraday chart, it's still a bit of a chop fest. So for me, it's still kind of the wait and see.
Yeah, SPY looking a little stronger than QQQ at the moment, which wasn't really the case this morning in pre-market. So I'm just kind of noticing that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, seeing some downside here, not looking the best. Let's take a
Yeah,
look at
well, here's the
plug
VWAP
real
from the
quick.
open.
That was
So
another one from the chat.
I'm looking at plug. Yeah, and let's make this interactive. So ask questions, see what you want us to look at. Here's plug. This is a dog, to be honest. If right, it's one of those things you zoom out. Anytime I see a stock that used to be $1,112 being a $2 stock, and at one point was trading at 12 cents, there's definitely some problems with this company. Could it be a turnaround story? Absolutely, but right, very very beaten up from $1,000 down to two. Just consolidating here, right? So from a short term kind of a trade, if that's what you're looking at, it's holding 250. The problem with a name like this is when a stock is down this much, they have probably diluted the crap out of their shareholders. So what happens is you get these really, really big floats, which makes it really hard for the stock to actually move because it's one of those names in which you need to see something, right? You need to see that kind of move take place. So I'm just looking at the float here now. Yeah, 800 million shares in the float. So
Mm.
this is going to take a lot of volume with an average daily volume of like 100 million. Yeah, so this is going to be a slow one. With which is again, there's nothing wrong with it. It just means the odds that this thing's going to double or triple are going to be pretty low. It's going to be a slower mover. Which again, there's nothing wrong with being a slow moving just stock. Just note, right? Every time I see something like this, I'm like, okay, there's bag holders from 30 and 15 and 10 and 5 and 3. And as we bounce, a lot of these bag holders are going to be like, hey, I need to get out of this position. So, Rivian. So, Rivian's interesting, right? We talked about, again, there are bag holders in this name, but not nearly as much as in some of those. But a long time of consolidation, right? This thing stopped going down in August 2023, and it's just been a complete chop fest since then. So at some point, this thing may turn around and push higher. But yeah, so far just consolidating. I think for the short term, and I'm interested to hear your opinion, but I think the short term, On a stock like Rivian, you want to see that momentum. So I think 1650, we got to get above that in order to get involved. But we're above the 200-day moving average. You can see it's starting to slope higher. So some good signs for this anyway, at least under the hood. Oh, you're gone again. It happens. Yeah, so that's again, and if you're taking the trade, for me, this becomes a pretty simple like box trade. Right? I can actually draw this out. So, you're trying to look to get involved, at least for me, if we can get above that 1650, you put your stop below the 200-day moving average. Makes for a nice, pretty simple from 16 to like 12. So you're risking $4 a share. So then the question you got to ask yourself is, do you think you can at least make $8 a share? If so, and $8 a share would be roughly these old highs. If so, that's great. But just know this thing's been a bit of a chop fest. So whatever I would do with this, it would have a wide stop, because when a stock is choppy like this, the worst thing I think you can do is try to get really, really cute with the trade, because then it's under, it's over, you're getting stopped out, you're getting wicked out one way or another. If you like Rivian a lot, then I'd say, yeah, you're above the 200-day moving average. You get involved and you say, okay, I think this thing's going to go. But when I see a chart like this isn't a chart that I really want to get like super cute with trades, because again, just choppy, choppy mess. I think you're back. I think you are. Nope. I lied. All right, we can just go through some other charts here as well. Don't worry about it. Bring in some people in. Okay, well, I think there was one more. Oh, that GUR. I wanted to. Let me know when you want to kick me out. But GUR was really interesting because, yeah, this is one thing I wanted to note. So this is the anchored VWAP from this high on GUR, which is basically what's the average price of the average market participant. We rallied right to that and started to fade. That was around 1650. I have this marked up because I think the last two times I was on, people were talking about GUR. So if we can get above 1650, maybe it takes another run at highs. But this is just one of those names where if you go back in time, you can see it has this history of ripping and crashing, right? Pump and dump and pump and dump and pump, and who knows, right? Maybe is this the end? It could be. When I look at a stock like that, do I want to take that bet? Absolutely not. So I just want to take my shot. I just want to get in. I want to take my shot to see if I'm correct. And this is just something that's going to move. And as long as the momentum's in my favor, I want to get involved. But anytime you see a stock that is down to $1 and it used to be $500 a share, you know that the stock was never $500 a share. This has been reverse split, which means they dropped under $1. They had no way to get back compliance with the NASDAQ. So they got hit. Then they dropped under $1. They got hit again and again and again. So just be careful. No, it's a momentum name. If you want to trade the momentum, again, I think this prior high at 1650 is the way to go. Just like with the quantum computers and everything, and the drones and all this craziness, they're fun to trade. Go to the party, have fun at the quantum computer party. Don't be the last guy at the quantum computer party. Have some sort of way to get out, right? Cool. Sounds good.
What's going on?
Hey, how's it going? Your sound is working. That's fantastic.
Good. Yes. I was watching. I think Jordan might have had some technical difficulties as well. Are we transitioning over to talk some sports stuff? I was looking at your charts. I always appreciate your insights. Followed you on Twitter and what you just provided here as well.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Well, thank you guys for having me.
All right. See ya. What's going on, Jordan? You're
Talk soon.
everything working on your end?
Yo, I think so. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I just tried to
Yes.
refresh it, so hopefully it's working. But I know you got some sports plays for us.
Yeah, sure do. So let's go ahead and kind of here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Da, 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 da. Well, quickly, just kind of, obviously you've got the slate of the NBA coming up, and then obviously you also have the. Let me share this real quick. There we go. Then you also have NFL as well. So we're just going to quickly kind of talk over a couple of things in terms of what I'm personally looking at, how things have gone in the sports betting world, and then, different aspects of that. So for those of you that may not have seen me on this show before, the way that I like to bet on sports is, I'll have an insights on, what I believe is going to happen. But more importantly, what I care about is kind of getting the best number. And, as you should go ahead and journal your trades, I journal my bets as well. So Pickett is one of the very well-known bet tracking apps out there. It automatically, as soon as I place a bet at sportsbooks, it syncs it. It lets me know how everything is going. And here's kind of what I mean, and I promise I'll get into the picks, is, for example, the other day, we bet on, let's say Houston money line, right? Where I got the odds at -110, which means if I want to win $100, I got to lay $110 down as risk. The line closed at -200. So this bet won, but even if this bet lost, I would have lost $110, where if I got the closing line, I would have lost $200. So I saved myself $90 if that bet would have lost. It didn't, though, and it worked out. Now, just because you beat the closing line doesn't mean that you're going to win the bet. It's not a guarantee. One example of that is right over here. I bet Buddy Yield was going to get under 11.5 points. I got it at +110, which means I risked $100. I would have won 110 in profit if I was right. I beat the line by 10%. He scored 18 instead of under 11.5. So just because you beat the closing line doesn't mean you're guaranteed to win. But if you repeat this process over and over again, you will have what, if you're a poker player, you can maybe, know the term here. It's called expected EV, expected value, to kind of get more returns on that. And it's been a good, profitable month. Can't complain. Where is my history? There we go. On the month, we're up about $21,000, ROI of about 7.5%. So, again, not going to be right every single time, but if I get the best numbers and I'm right about the what I think is going to happen, is the best way to go. In terms of putting it into stock market wise, right, Jordan, you have the fundamental aspect of it and you have the technical aspect of it. So it's like, hey, you look at the fundamental story of the company, but you got to figure out when's the best price to get in.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what we do in that world. All right. Enough of the gibberish talk there. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the games that are coming up here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a couple of different ways that folks want to look at it, right? So if you're a believer that, hey, I think this is going to happen, I'll give you some insights on what type of bets you can place. So we're going to go ahead and start off with, you've got the Texans and the Chiefs as well. Obviously, you have the Chiefs that are going to be well rested, getting healthy as well. They're about an 8.5 point favorite. If you believe that the Chiefs are going to go ahead and get off to a fast start, that means C.J. Stroud's going to have to go ahead and throw the ball. So if you like that, I personally am going to probably play the over 20.5 passing completions. You can get that for about -125, because if the Chiefs get off to a hot start, C.J.'s going to have to go ahead and throw the ball. And then if you go ahead and watch last week's game, or just at least look at the stats, you'll see that C.J. had completed 22 passes against the Chargers, and they were obviously up in that game, and he only attempted 2 passes in that fourth quarter. So they're going to rely on that passing game, especially if Chiefs get off to a hot start, and that's one way that you can go ahead and play that. Speaking of that, in correlation, and again, you can parlay these depending on what sports book you're at, but if you believe that theory, then you may also want to take a look at Patrick Mahomes under 37.5 passing attempts as well. The weather is not going to be the greatest out there, so they may rely a little bit on the run game, especially if the winds pick up as well. And again, if you're up in that game, like they're expected to be in terms of the point spread, not a lot of reason for Patrick Mahomes to go ahead and continue slinging it as well. And a little fun one, Taylor Swift is going to be in attendance, and if you feel like Travis Kelce is going to have a good old game, you can bet Travis Kelce on an anytime touchdown at about +150 or so. He hasn't scored a lot of touchdowns, but in the playoffs, he's definitely going to be a bit reliable. What are your thoughts on that? Feel free to pick it apart. Do you watch the NFL at all, or are you just going to agree with me and make me feel good?
I used to watch like all the sports a lot more. I pretty much only watch golf now, for the most part. But I just love the way you break down like everything, like the weather, and you take everything into account. It's very strategic, and it's just funny because we do the same thing with stocks, we do the same thing with investments, right? And it's just like that's how you have to be. And I see a lot of like hometown friends. They're trying to do this stuff, man. And they're just, it's a losing game for them because they're just like, oh, I want to bet on my favorite team and I love this guy. And it's like, if you're trying to actually make money
from it,
get good at this, that's not the way you can go about it, But I just love the way you do it. It's so cool to just hear you kind of talk about like, hey, we have to take this into account, we have to look at it. It's just, it makes sense, and it's just cool to see it done in a different different, I guess, sector, different area.
Yeah.
You know
And
what
one
I mean?
thing I will say is anything that I'm thinking of, I'm not the smartest guy on the block whatsoever, right? But anything that I'm saying, Vegas already knows. These are already kind of priced into the odds. They're already kind of priced into it. So that's why you kind of have to think of like, okay, this is what is out there priced in. What do I believe is going to happen based on that information? And based on that gut feeling or whatever you want to call it, where can I get the best number? Like I can't emphasize that enough. Actually, matter of fact, I believe the future of sports betting is not going to be the sports book themselves. I think it's going to be exchanges where you and I can just kind of place a bet and we kind of charge each other less of a vig, the juice, the tax than what the odds maker charge you at minus 110 and whatever the case may
Sounds
be.
interesting. I think that'd be an
Yeah.
interesting world to step into for sure.
And
Is
there's
there?
a lot of-
Have you bet
yeah.
on golf? Have you ever bet on
I
golf?
have not, man. And you know, I did last time I bet on golf was maybe 7 years, no, that's a stretch. Maybe 4 years ago, just like random matchups.
You
here
could
and
do
there.
it that long ago? That's crazy. I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
think about
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Damn. That's
Yeah,
wild.
yeah. Don't tell the cops. Don't tell the cops. But yeah, you definitely can. All right, let's keep it moving. Yeah, look, feel free to ask questions. I'm not reading the chat because I've got my screens up. But if they have
Oh, no
anything,
worries.
you're welcome to
I'll look
kind of
out
let me
for
know.
anything.
But the next one for me, you've got Washington Commanders taking on the Lions. So look, I'm going to go ahead and point out the point spread here. And you can see the Commanders here. They started off, or you've got them at 10.5 at the moment. That's the point spread of it. Now, this is a game where if you are going to kind of, again, what do we kind of believe? I think you're going to have Jaden Daniels to kind of have the rushing attempts that he's going to need to go ahead and attack the blitzes that the Lions are going to throw at him. So if you believe that theory, you can attack it in a couple of ways. Rushing attempts over 9.5 for Jaden, and obviously you can also get over rushing yards at 54.5 as well. Now, the Lions have done a great job of kind of maintaining quarterbacks. They don't give up a lot of rushing yards, but they also, if you look at their history and their schedule, they don't play against quarterbacks that are as mobile as Jaden Daniel is. So that's something to kind of keep in mind as well. And you obviously have this total of 55.5. So if you believe that, hey, it's going to be a high scoring game, and you think Jaden's going to be on his legs a little bit to kind of create some opportunities for his offense, that's one way to take a look at it as well. On the other side, if you feel like the Lions are going to come off at a hot start and they're about, a 10.5 favorite, then you can take a look at maybe seeing if the under is the play for you because you think they're going to the Lions are going to run the ball a little bit more, milk the clock a little bit here and there. Something to keep in mind. Me personally, I like Washington plus 10.5, depending on where the line closes. One of the main numbers in football is 3, 4, 7, and 10. That's where the majority of games end. So if I can get 10.5, I'll happily take it. I get a head start of that. That's good. And that's kind of what I'm keeping an eye on in that way there. Next up, you've got the Eagles. You have Saquon Barkley. That's one that I'm keeping an eye on. Probably going to play his over. Here, let me actually do this real quick. Let's go NFL. Let's do longest rushing. There you go. So this is what I mean by kind of playing the numbers. And we're kind of actually here. Let me show you guys. So here's Saquon Barkley, right? I personally am going to go ahead and play over 18.5 as his longest rushing attempt. And you can see if that's the case, you have different ways to kind of go ahead and play this. This isn't that big of a deal in terms of pricing with this market, but DraftKings, you have to lay down $125 to win the bet. Where FanDuel or Bet365 or ESPN Bet, or that's a different number, but you have to lay down $120. So you're saving yourself $5 in case you're wrong. But here's the fundamental aspect of it. Saquon has posted a 20-plus yards in about 6 of his last 8 games and about 12 of his last 17 in terms of the season. So he's hitting those at a high rate. And they obviously also rank number 1 in terms in the NFL in terms of yards gained before contact is made. Now, when you put that together again, who's on the other side of the ball, you have the Rams who are ranked about 26th in yards per carry and 28th in yards allowed before contact as well. Saquon, you expect him to have big numbers, especially because when they played earlier in the season, he went for about 200-plus yards. I think he had 2 runs of over 50 yards per attempt, or excuse me, the longest rush there. So I think if you want to look at it that way, Saquon Barkley over 18.5, longest rush is one to keep an eye on there. And then the last one that I have is you've got the Ravens against the Bills. This whole conversation about who's going to be MVP, I think it's fascinating. I personally have money on Lamar before the voting came out. I'm hoping that ticket cashes as well. But I think this can go ahead and be a high-scoring game. And so I would probably play the over 51. But more importantly, let's go ahead and talk about, let's go to rushing attempts here. Rushing attempts. Is that going to be it? There you go. Go to Lamar. See what the number's at. You're getting it about 9.5. And look, here's another good example, Jordan. We talked about finding the best price. I'm going to harp on it. You're going to get bored of me, but this is what I mean. If you go to ESPN and if you want to bet that Lamar Jackson will rush for at least 10 times his rushing attempts, you can risk $100 and you will profit 105 if you're right. However, if you bet this at FanDuel, you will have to risk 115 to profit 100. So you're risking $15 more to profit $5 less. And
Gotcha.
that's a $20 swing. You know, it's like, this is why it's like, hey, you got to find the best number because the odds are already against you. Find the best number to play it. This is one way that I would go ahead and do that. Lamar Jackson over 9.5. I think they started off the wild card game with like 4 straight rushing attempts for Lamar Jackson. Not saying that's exactly what they're going to do, but the man's dangerous on his feet. If he stays healthy during the game, I think this has an opportunity to go ahead and hit there as well. But yeah, man, those are my thoughts. Those are my ways of kind of looking at the games.
It reminds me of picking options on an options chain.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we always look at data, the Greeks, hey, what's going to happen? Where is it at? What's going to give us the best opportunity? The volatility, right? Just because you think a stock is going up doesn't mean you'll pick something that's 5, derivatives or 5, what I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it's like 5 out of the money strikes.
Oh, yeah, 5 strikes,
closer.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so that's just a way to kind of look at it, but should be fun. If anyone's interested in betting the NBA tonight, I personally will be going against Oklahoma City Thunder. They had a great game, obviously, yesterday against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They whooped them. I think you're going to see a bit of a letdown game possibly, but it all depends on if Kyrie Irving is going to play for the Mavs. So we'll wait for that game time decision to come out, and then we will bet on them. Saved ourselves a couple of minutes, man. But yeah, if the chat has any questions, you want to talk stocks or anything like that, I am done with my part. Oh, looks like you may have gone.
Am I back?
Uh-oh. You are back now. Yes.
Oh my God, it's I don't know what's happening this morning. It's been rough, but
no worries.
Yeah, no. If the chat has any questions, feel free for Zunaid. But if not, I think we're all good to wrap up. But
sweet.
Just appreciate you bringing in the sports picks because none of us are doing it. So love to have somebody that's educated in the space talking about it.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, have a great day. Everybody in the audience, have a great trading day. It's FAFO Friday. Have a great weekend as well. Monday, we're closed, so remember that. And we'll see everybody bright and early on Tuesday. So enjoy the weekend, guys.